evening, everyone. I now call the East Lyme Zoning Commission regular meeting of February 17th, 2022 to order. It is 7:30. Please rise and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, prior to doing roll call, myself is here, Mr. Dwyer is not, Terry Granitek, present, Debbie Jett, here, Harris, Mr. Peck, yep. Ann Thurlow is not here, Jay Ginsberg, here, Denise Markovitz, here, Dave Schmidt, here. Alright, for the record, seeing that Ann and Mr. Dwyer are not here, I can see already Mr. Ginsberg and Ms. Markovitz. At this time, public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission on a subject matters that are not on the agenda. Does anybody have any public delegation for items that are not on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on. I'd also like to remind people to silence their devices for us, please. Public hearing, number 1, request of the town of East Lyme Public Library for a special permit under East Lyme zoning regulation sections 20.1.2F, 25.5, 24, 24.7, 26.6E.3 for a historical museum, small group meeting room, and office at property identified in the application as 171 Boston Post Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 31.1, Lot 31. Mr. Mulholland, you ran the legal ad.
Legal ad's been run, Mr. Chairman, and a sign has been posted.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Peck.
I need to recuse.
At this time, Mr. Peck will recuse himself, and I would like to invite Mr. Schmidt up to the desk, please. Seeing that Ms. Thurlow is not here, I read the zoning official memo. Dated February 17th, 2022, to the East Lyme Zoning Commission from William Mulholland regarding special permit application, the East Lyme Library, History Center, 171 Boston Post Road. The applicant in the East Lyme Public Library has applied for a special permit to reuse the existing town building at 171 Boston Post Road as a museum. The subject property was previously occupied by the town fire marshal, emergency services, and 911 dispatch. It consists of a 2-story building which has 23 existing on-site parking spaces. The East Lyme Historical Society will use the building to house its historical archives. They will be located on the 2nd floor. The archives will be available to the public for research purposes by appointment only. There will also be some meeting space available on the 2nd floor as well. The 1st floor will house the museum and will be used to display artifacts and will be open to the general public. The museum will be staffed by volunteers who will be on the site during operating hours. It is anticipated that visitor traffic will be limited due to the nature of the use. Occasionally, small groups may visit, but generally most visits are expected to be individuals and small groups. The zoning regulations allow the use under section 20.1.2-F, town buildings and uses. The section requires the issuance of a special permit for the museum use. The special permit use requires compliance with section 25, special permits, sections 24, site plan, and section 22, parking. A review of the application and site plan finds that it substantially conforms to the requirement of section 24, with the following exceptions. In accordance with section 24.4b1 I have waived the A2 survey requirement as the site is technically part of the school property to the rear, and such a survey would be impractical for the purpose of determining compliance. Given that the proposed use is a retrofit of an existing facility, most site plan requirements are addressed by existing site conditions. Whew, pardon me. It's the whole second page. The applicant is also requesting an exception to the 10-foot buffer requirement as provided for in section 24.7. This again is due to the existing on-site conditions. Overall, the site is compliant with the site plan requirements. In addition, on-site parking consists of 23 parking spaces as delineated on the plan. Section 22 of the zoning regulations provides criteria for parking. In this case, section 22.1.9 lists theater, auditorium, church, or place of public assembly as the activities closest to the museum use. The requirement is one space for every 5 seats. However, because no seating is used in a museum setting, the above noted criteria is not applicable to the proposed case. Excuse me, not. The most appropriate parking regulation falls under section 22.1.18, uses not specified, quotations. Given the limited museum floor area and the archive use of the second floor, it is recommended that the commission adopt the existing on-site parking, 23 spaces, as the parking requirement as permitted under this section. In conclusion, the proposal as submitted is a reasonable reuse of an existing town building which can easily be converted to the museum use. The commission should carefully evaluate the proposal and ensure the application is in keeping with the standards and special permit requirements found in section 25.3.1. There we go. Moving on to the presentation. Please step up to the microphone. State your name, address, please.
My name is Elizabeth Hall Cookta. I live at 154 Pennsylvania Avenue, and I'm your East Lyme Town historian. As for a presentation, I don't really want to go into a zillion in-depth questions, but I will take any from you when you get to it. The museum is something that is a work between us and the library, as the library has been housing a number of the archive papers that belong to the Historical Society, and we've continued to work in increasing the number of items there. Unfortunately, or luckily for the library, the room that is used as the archive room is used by many organizations during the week, and that leaves very little time for us to get into the archive room to do any work on the items in there. So being able to move the archives into a building is going to be a great asset to the society, where we can have access as we need them. Plus, we will be able, some of us, to empty out our houses of the and those who have been in my house know what I'm talking about. Empty out some of the files that we've been storing here. There is actually a file cabinet downstairs here in your vault that the Historical Society keeps. As a 5-drawer cabinet that is just about overflowing with precious documents that we have kept here because it's climate controlled and that. As for a museum, it's something that any town would like to have in their area to display what their town is all about. East Lyme has a rich history that many people do not know about. There are so many little hidden stories, and having this area to present these stories will be a great asset to us and to the town. Right now we are looking at a couple larger displays that we would like to have. One of them is located up in Yukon, and that is the Norris Bull collection of Native American artifacts from the state of Connecticut. He did a lot of his collecting in the local area, and the collection was donated to Yukon by the family. which includes Jim Littlefield, as Norris Bull was his grandfather. So the Bull collection really has a lot of close ties here. There's probably 6,000 items total. We won't be probably asking to borrow that many from them. It would probably be a permanent loan type deal with Yukon to have these items displayed here. We have a couple other large donations of items that are expected to be donated to the Society, including a large Civil War collection, which will be a wonderful asset to show off the amount of servicemen who have served in the service of the wars over the whole town's being here, right, starting right with the French and Indian Wars. Many people do not realize how many veterans are buried in town from what we refer to as the colonial wars. There are 64 known Civil War veterans in the town, and we know the stories of some of them. So it will be a nice display to bring early history along with the Revolutionary soldiers and the other soldiers involved. As for other displays there, they would be a rotating display area where we could then show different aspects of the town, including the shipbuilding industry that was here. Many people do not realize we built a lot of ships here that sailed out to the banks for fishing. We had the fishing industry with the sloops leaving here. We had an ice industry. There was a large pier that went out into Niantic Bay from the hole in the wall, and the ships pulled in there to load up with ice, which was iced in the ponds here. Icing being another very important factor in the town. And now I'm getting way into too many details, and I'm not going to bore you anymore. But I want you to see that there is so much rich history in this town. And the location of the old fire department building, and let me tell you, I know stories about that. Some of you do not realize my father was the fire chief for many, many years, and was instrumental in getting the Flanders department started in that. So it's kind of like I'm going to a home base.
Nice.
But the proximity to the schools is also important to us, being so close to Flanders School. And a lot of the schools are now getting back to wanting to teach history to the children. I'm very dismayed when twice a year I give a talk at the Old Stone Church burial ground to a group of seniors. And one of the first questions I ask them is, when was the state of Connecticut, well, it wasn't state then, when were the first settlers of European origin? When did they come to Connecticut? And not a single one can answer. They guess 1850. They have no clue. I've even asked them about Plymouth Rock, and they have no clue what that is. So I think it's important that we can finally get a place where we can bring the history back to the children. And again, with working with the library, it's going to be an asset because we work together with doing programs and that as well. The archives will be stored upstairs. Because the upstairs, might be difficult for some people, most places as you go to, if you want to review archive material, you call ahead, set up a time. The archive material is brought to you. You don't get free rein when you go to visit an archive place. So we'll have an area downstairs set aside just for reviewing documents. I don't know how much more I can tell you other than this is just going to be a wonderful asset to the town. I will take any questions that you might have about what we're looking to do.
Does any commission member have any questions?
I just have one really quick question, just because I'm curious. Who would be responsible for transporting these precious documents to the new location?
It would be the society.
Society? Okay.
And the library as well, because we will not be taking all of the archives out of the library, as some of the rare books and that actually belong to the library. There are also documents there that way back when Floor Stores was You guys are all too young to know that the library was down on Main Street, but I can tell you my, I can tell you my I can tell you my library card was 1004. And Flora was a great lover of town history, so she had a file cabinet stuck in the back that she kept documents and saving things, and that got transported to the library. She was the one that insisted on the East Lyme room. But because of the fact that the library is open, or will be open more hours than we will probably for document, we get research in both places. People call the library all the time looking with questions. And poor Karen.
Basically, it's going to be transported throughout the through the historical and
Yes. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just have, sorry, quick two-parter. You guys plan on making any major changes to the building? And is the condition of the building suitable for, obviously, we have some pretty valuable artifacts in history?
With it being a brick and mortar building, that helps out quite a bit. A wood frame construction is not always ideal for an archive. Any construction that we have to do we want to be ADA compliant, at least on the lower level. And right now, the bathroom that is down there, which we'd like to keep, is not ADA compliant. So we are needing to work to get money to make that come in. Otherwise, it's pretty well, we're not going to be doing much structural changes or anything of walls and that. Upstairs, for what we want to use it for, is an ideal. I don't know how many of you have been up there, but it's a large open room with 4 sort of offices off to one side, which are really perfect for what we're looking for.
Great. Thank you.
Mr. Ginsburg.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, what hours do you plan for the museum to be open, and will people need an appointment to come in?
Right now, we haven't really, we have sort of talked about it, but not gone into in-depth detail. It's not going to be till we get there and get set up and see how many volunteers. It may only start out where it's only like 3 days a week, and it may only be certain hours, say like noon to 4 or something like that, till we can actually get into a routine and see how much we're going to need to be there. It's kind of small steps till we see what we're doing.
In terms of the parking, how many volunteers will be taking up parking spaces?
Probably no more than 2, maybe 1. And if there are like school children and that coming, it would probably, for a tour or to hear, I don't want to say a lecture, but a little talk on something. If they are bused from anywhere, with the proximity of the school and the Board of Ed, a school bus can pull in there, and the kids can just walk over from there, rather than a school bus trying to fight a turnaround in the firehouse parking lot.
Thank you very much for your
Okay.
presentation. At this time, I'd like any questions from the public on said application. None? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, do we take a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, ladies. Moving on to the regular meeting for the request of the Town of East Lyme Public Library for a special permit under East Lyme zoning regulations, section 20.1.2F, 25.5, 24, 24.7, 26.6E.3 for a historical museum, small group meeting room, and office at property identified in the application as 171 Boston Post Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 31.1, Lot 31. So, I myself find this a great use of that building in all technicalities. One, for what we just heard through the presentation, and it's, it's already a town building as it may be, so I myself have no qualms about it, and it would actually, I'd probably visit more often, because half the things that were presented to us, I did not know. So I thank you for that, but
Don't get me started.
Yeah. I also heard there's a good fire truck that could go there from time to time. Is that true? It would look good out front. Yeah.
Could visit.
Anybody else? Comments?
I think it's a great idea, and I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in this project to get it going and to realize the importance of our town history and our artifacts and the files and everything. I think it's a tremendous asset to our town, and thank you so much.
Anyone?
I was only going to ask quickly, is there going to be any, you were mentioning the humidity and control, temperature control for the archives. Is there going to be any changes or of significance to the HVAC system to accommodate that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Sure. Please.
Since we closed the public hearing.
Okay.
We should
Yeah,
have
I
any
was just
interaction
gonna-
with the
Yeah.
public.
I was going to explain that.
As
Yeah.
staff, we still need to get in with the building official and see what we need to do. They're gonna look at all of those issues. There may be some fundraising yet to do. What we're looking to do is get the zoning out of the way,
Okay, I
per
didn't know.
se, and then we can start lining up all, and addressing all the other issues. And they'll do their master plan. They'll get in with the building and fire guys and look at the building and see what else they need to do. They'll look at the handicap access for bathrooms, and that type of thing. So that's yet to be determined. So we're really the first permitting step.
So Dave, I mean, it was, the dispatch center and all that, so I mean,
Right,
it
no, I
does have
understand.
existing.
I do understand all of that, and I know the building. I was just curious if they needed anything that might impact, a condenser on the ground or anything like that. That's all. No major issue.
No.
Otherwise, I think it's great also.
I think it's marvelous. Anyone else? Jay, you good?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I love it.
I'd like to take my grandchildren there when it opens.
And I'm sure you'll find out the hours, so. Yep. Sarah, you good?
I'm good.
It's time to take a motion to approve or deny with conditions on said application.
I take a motion to approve as presented.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
you might want to read at the
I
bottom
am.
of my memo.
sorry. Dan's not
I think
here.
Do you want me to read it? I can
Yes.
read it. I motion to approve the request of the town of East Lyme Public Library for a special permit under East Lyme zoning regulations sections 20.1.2F, 25.5, 24, 24.7, 26.6E.3 for a historical museum, small group meeting room, and office at property identified in the application as 171 Boston Post Road, East Lyme Assessors Map 31.1, Lot 31, with the following conditions. Number 1, waive the 10-foot buffer requirement of section 24.6E3 because of existing conditions. 2, parking requirement to be 23 spaces as per section 22.1.18.
Thank you, Denise. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ginsburg. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries 600.
Mr. Chairman, published next Thursday, effective on Friday.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good luck. Moving on. Approval of the minutes of January 20th, 2022. Do I have a motion? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta sit Norm again. Sorry, Norm. Thank you, Mr. You get in a rhythm, It's just like,
Doing good.
I'll get better as time goes on.
I was waiting for him to stand up.
Yeah. Sorry. All right, carrying on. Do I have a motion? Anybody?
What do we need a motion for?
The minutes?
Oh, I make a motion that we accept the minutes, approve the minutes as read.
As presented. Thank
As
you. Do I have a
presented.
second?
Second.
Thank you, Terry.
It's the terminology.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you. Old business, there is none. New business. the application of Fresh Lyme Partners LLC for a special permit for a cannabis establishment pursuant to section 11.2.13 of the East Lyme zoning regulations at property located at 15 Colton Road, East Lyme Assessor's Map 09.0, Lot 14. Mr. Mulholland, you schedule that?
I will, Mr. Chairman, if I may, very
You may.
briefly, for the newer folks. A few months ago, we had an application for a text amendment to allow this activity as a use in light industrial zones, subject to a special permit. So the applicant is now coming forward for the special permit. I won't get into the weeds because it's inappropriate, so that's how we've gotten to this point. And when we have the hearing, you'll hear more explanation. So that's kind of a general background for the newer folks, just so that you know where this came from. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Mulholland. Moving on, any business on the floor, if any, by the majority of the commission? Anybody?
Nope.
Nope.
Moving on, zoning official.
We're busy, the phone's ringing still, so the economy hasn't collapsed yet. We've got a couple of big projects in the wings. I don't want to talk about them because they may come up before you, but people are calling. Who knows what will come before the board. Sometimes I don't hear back from these folks. We may have 5 meetings and they never show up again. So we'll see. So we're busy. The new building downtown at 185 Main Street has begun construction. The Exit 75 Travel Center has clearing brush. And then the 80-unit affordable housing on North Brybrook Road, he's beginning to get into the property to some degree. So those activities are going on. The Rocky Neck Village is still under construction. They're having issues with the zoning guy for non-compliance, so I'm withholding the last 10 COs, and I've turned the case over to town attorney. Because I've been talking till I'm blue in the face since July with the same stuff, so I'm done. That's sort of an enforcement side. I don't expect it to be litigated, but it's, hey, you need to do these things, or I'm not signing off. So sometimes that occurs. So we're moving along pretty good. So that's pretty much what I have.
Ms. Mullen, can you do me a favor, please? And the zoning commission members received the correspondence that you sent to our first selectman. Could you just touch on that for our newest members, please?
On the which subject? FEMA.
Flood.
So,
Sorry.
very briefly, I do FEMA. It's in the zoning code. When you get in that section, it's in there. You don't want to read it. I don't want to read it, but it's somewhat complicated. The folks at FEMA have a coordinator at the state level, and I've known her for years, so she's been very helpful over the years, and you really need to pay attention to this, because if we don't apply the FEMA regs correctly, they'll pull the National Flood Insurance Program from the town, and they come in and they audit, and they spot us, so we pay attention. So as part of our general housekeeping, I had looked at our regs and thought they may need to be updated because they're constantly being updated and we're the last to know. So I sent it up to the DEP, to this lady, and she looked at them and she sent back some recommendations. Subsequently, the Zoning Commission had a hearing and adopted those changes and got our regulations up to speed. The town has a flood ordinance as well as the regulations being in the zoning code. There's a flood ordinance, and the reason and purpose is because it covers the beach areas, Crescent Beach, Black Point, and Giants Neck Beach Association, that have their own zoning by special act of the state legislature. We have no legal authority there with the exception of CAM. And then the FEMA is covered by the town flood ordinance. So we're trying to get that updated. The recommendation from this woman at DEP on behalf of FEMA is that the flood ordinance should match the town zoning regulations. They should be the same. They were originally intended just to address the beach areas. However, when they were adopted, they didn't say that. So we're looking to do some housekeeping. I've already forwarded that to the selectmen for action because they need to decide whether to delete the flood ordinance and adopt the zoning code so we have a balanced approach. So that's why that email came out. It's been forwarded to the first selectman and they're going to look at it in March. And so that's the background on that. One other item while I have your attention is you'll be getting an email about an aquifer protection meeting soon. We have some renewals coming up The meeting will probably start at 7. You will get an email. One member of this commission will probably get 2 or 3 emails because he always forgets that meeting starts at 7. Lucky for me, he's not here tonight, so I can get away with that one.
You're talking about me.
No. And
That one
So
starts
we'll-
at 7, Dave.
yeah, we'll be looking at that, and then we'll talk more about the ACWA stuff, because this board is a separate agency called the ACWA Board. When you act in that capacity, you are no longer the zoning commission. You just double doing both. So you're actually on the ACWA Protection Board as well. And that program is essentially really a business registration. We've got about 16, 17 businesses in the aquifer. They need to register. They need to do certain activities. And we're up for some renewals, so those will be coming forward, and you will have the capacity to renew those, mostly housekeeping. We don't really have any businesses that are really a threat, and this really comes down to, it's more wellhead protection. Some people, I think, are under the impression that the Aquifer Board has broad powers like the zoning board does to do a lot of things. You don't. This is mandated by the state. They set the system up. We have a set of regulations, a set of state regulations. Anything beyond a certain amount of certain liquids that are regulated is the jurisdiction of the state of Connecticut. And they come down anyway, and they do spot checks, and then they call me. My admin, Jen, has a very good relationship with the aquifer lady at the state, as do I. You have to be certified. I got certified years ago. Jennifer just took a course because she's very helpful in that area. Because as one person, there's a lot for me to do, so she's been helpful in covering a lot of things as staff. So that's essentially where we're at with that program. So we'll see more of that later on.
Thank you, Mr. Mulholland.
You're welcome.
No Miss Roseanne Hardy here tonight, ex officio. But I did hear from Kevin that they're getting a lot of talk about the Amtrak fence, just so everyone is aware.
Yeah, and I will share with you, the planner and I are going to go see the first selectman about that issue. We have some very strong feelings about it. As you all know, I've been doing the architectural stuff for a very long time. We think, and I think...
How long?
A long time. Not as long as Dwyer, though, but it's starting to run as the second dark horse here. And, we've made a great effort. We've had a lot of success. We've worked closely with a lot of architects. And in my opinion, the fence issue is a major issue. It's going to be in place for 50 years. I've got a guy building a $7 million building on Main Street, and there's some people that want to change the fence out from what Amtrak wants to do. They could adversely affect his values. So there's obviously a variety of opinions and ideas and concepts. Amtrak has proposed an architectural fence. Some people may not like it, they may not feel it's appropriate. You're also an architecture review board. Welcome to that as well. It's in the zoning code. You haven't had to do it because we haven't anything major new downtown. And at some point we'll be talking about those things and what to look for. I'll share with you, I've done it for about 5 years in knowing we've had architecture review, even on front doors of single-family homes. So I have a lot of experience with this. We're going to do commercial stuff. And we're a by-the-book group, so that should work out. But the fence is, it works in with the architecture. It's part of the ambiance and the character, and we need to make sure we get it right. And I wanted to have a discussion with Kevin about that, to see that we're included in that discussion as staff.
I have seen it, and it's actually not that bad.
And for those of you who would like to see it, if you go to Spices Marina in Noank, it's been up for 2 years. And it's right there along the railroad track, and that's what they've proposed. And I think you can decide for yourselves whether you think it's attractive or not. And we all have to remember, in a sense, architecture is subjective.
Is it a closed fence or a see-through fence?
No, it's a
No,
see-through fence.
It's more like a deck fence, in all honesty,
It's
or deck
vertical.
railing rather.
It's a vertical and
And in all honesty, you shouldn't be looking out the window when you're driving anyway. Just saying. But that's just my
So
opinion.
where did you say it's located at?
It's Spices Marina on Marsh Road in Noank. And you follow, and you can't get into Noank Village because the major bridge is closed. They're redoing it. It's been a year and a half, so you have to go into Noank from Long Point Road.
Yep, I know what's that.
And just before the volleyball courts on the
Uh-huh.
beach, you take a left, that's Marsh Road. You get down there about a quarter mile, and as the road winds around, it comes right up and kisses the railroad track, and right there is the exact fence they want to use here. It's been there for 2 years.
Okay,
I've
thank you,
seen-
And
Mr.
no
I've
one
seen
could
it,
haven't
and it's not
objected, so
horrible.
who knows
Yeah.
what that means. But, I'm concerned, because of all the efforts I've done and we've done in downtown, and, all the architects that we've done several major large buildings. We have one just starting, and it all should tie together visually. And I think, with all due respect to the press, I think the article incited as opposed to informed.
I think it's something
And
that,
I personally and professionally have a beef with papers that incite as opposed to reform. I'm an old guy, so Walter Cronkite was my guy, and he recorded the meetings. He didn't make it up.
all
So
right,
I should leave my personal opinion out, but
okay,
you know,
well,
we're
we
trying
shouldn't
to
be
move
talking
the
about it anyway, in all honesty, but just mention it, yep. Moving on, comments from the zoning board liaison to the planning commission, which is Mr. Dwyer. Which one
I
is
have
that?
nothing.
no wonder he didn't come, because he didn't go to the meeting. That's why we got you
Was he
now.
there?
Next up on the schedule is Mr. Jay Ginsburg, who just traded with Mr. Granitek, but that's next time. Moving on, comments from the chairman. I really don't have any much comment tonight, in all honesty. Just stay safe. Hopefully we'll have power
Exactly,
throughout
yeah.
the night.
Yeah.
Oh,
And if you like the warmth today, just wait 8 hours. It's going away.
it was gorgeous
I
today.
know.
Other than that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
I
Do I have a
second
second?
that.
Thank you, ladies. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned.
I know everybody's got an